Welcome to week 24. We're going to go over these 6 books that I currently have started. The first one is Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. This is a suspense mystery thriller about Grady Green. He is an author, and a year ago, Abby, his wife, was headed home, called him, slammed on her brakes, and then disappeared. And there's been no traces of her. There's a few weird things about the whole situation, and now it is a year later. Grady is struggling so much, and he is a writer. He can't write, so his agent sends him to this island. This island has very few residents and has some really interesting things about it. So we're getting his perspective, and I'm at the 50% mark, and we jumped back a few times to Abby and what's going on in her head a week before the accident. So I'm really curious to see where this goes. I have read other Alice Feeney books that you never know where it's going to go. I will keep you posted on that book. The next book I'm in the middle of, I was 13% this morning, is When Godly People Do Ungodly Things by Beth Moore. I got a lot of Beth Moore books at one time for like free, and so I've just been working through them. This format I like a lot better. It's in longer chapters, and I'm really intrigued about this book. I'm really excited to read it and to see her thoughts on these topics. The third book that I'm reading is an audiobook, and it's The Fiery Cross by Diane Gabaldon. It is the 5th book in the Outlander series. This is a 56-hour audiobook, so I've been working on it for quite some time. I am 85% of the way through, so in the next day or two, I should have it done. I've said this before. I haven't watched the Outlander series, but I 100% see how each of these books is a complete season. I told you a few weeks ago I started. I have not done any watching. We've just been really busy. Our kids are staying up a little bit later because it's summertime. That's obviously not an appropriate show for them. And so when they do go to bed, I'm more wanting to read, and it just hasn't happened. So eventually I will watch that series, but not anytime soon, I fear. The 4th book I'm in the middle of, I started at the end of May. I'm 7% of the way through, and it's Leap of Faith by Bouchard. This is the first book in the Isabel Proctor mysteries, and what I can tell, it is a cozy, witchy mystery. As I said, I'm only 7% of the way through. It is one of the 25 books I want to read in 2025, and either this week or next week, I really need to read 2 of them. So that might be a book I pick up this week. I have some really exciting library loans that came in though, so I'm unsure when we get to one of those 25 books, but that is on deck. I might restart it, but if I don't, that's why it's just hanging out on my currently reading list. The next 2 books are books I talk about every single week, and that is the Gratitude Journal. My goal for this week is to number the book. I don't know how many times that's been my goal, and I have failed, but hopefully this week we can number the pages so I can tell you how far I am into the book. I feel like I'm probably 20% into the book, honestly. There's been so many days that I have not done it, mainly because I've been doing my Bible time when my kids are at swim lessons, and I don't bring my gratitude journal. So maybe I need to start doing that. However, my Bible reading, I am 45% of the way through, which I think I'm 1 day behind, but I tend to get behind on the weekend just because my routine is thrown off, and during the week I can catch up a little bit if I need to. So yes, I'm 45% of the way through, and those are the 6 books. So we are starting week 24 off with, I feel like in previous weeks we've had so many books to talk about, and we just don't this week, but I'm hoping to read some books. I have a physical book that I just haven't started because of time and things that I want to start. So hopefully I can start that today. It is a cowboy romance, and I was reading another romance, and so I didn't necessarily want to start it. But now I'm just reading that mystery thriller. So now might be the time to start it. Anyways, I'll let you know if I do. And I will talk to you in the next clip, and we will chat about books some more. I got my gratitude journal numbered, and I was right. I am about 20% of the way done. There are 130 pages, and I am on page 28. Kind of. 27 is here and 28 is here, but I just kind of open up the book and pick one of the 6 to do and just kind of work on it until all 6 are finished, and then I go to the next spread, if that makes sense. So yes, I'm saying I am on page 28, even though I do have one on 27 that I don't want to do. I don't like this spread, and I think that's why I haven't been doing it, because I have a hard time finding answers for it. So I
I finished The Fiery Cross by Diane Gabaldon, so we're going to chat about it. It is the 5th book in the Outlander series. I told you it was a long audiobook, and it was. It felt like a long audiobook. There were lots that happened, but very little that happened. Our characters are in America in 1771, and so Claire is from before this time, and so she knows that the American Revolution is coming, and so she's doing all of those things. They of course meet the key players, which is a book, so you kind of assume that, but our main characters are still Claire, Jamie, Roger, and Bree. Bree is at home with the baby quite a bit while the others kind of go back and forth, and we talk a lot about her journey feeding the baby and even a little bit about birth control. I feel like those things aren't typically represented, especially in historical fiction, but I just thought it was a very interesting that it just kept coming up, and we talked about it a lot, and we had a lot of description around it. I liked this book. However, it's probably my least favorite on the Outlander series thus far, and I ended up giving it 3.75 stars. I'm currently 80% into Beautiful Ugly, and we had a really big section explaining the title of the book, which I absolutely love, but I can't tell you because that would be a spoiler, and I don't want this to have any spoilers. But I'm 81% of the way through, and we're at a very action-packed section where Grady is trying to put all of the pieces together on this island. Obviously, he's trapped on this island, and so he's trying to figure out a way to not be trapped. But there's a lot of action, and I'm hoping the puzzle pieces start getting put together, because Grady had a conversation with a very interesting character that I'm not sure who they are. I finished Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney, and I've talked about it a couple times now, and I don't have a ton of additional thoughts, except for there were lots of twists at the end, which is very typical of Alice Feeney. On top of that, the epilogue, or like the very last twist, or whatever you would classify that last sentence or two, I didn't love. I loved everything up until that sentence. I could follow all the twists and all the things, but it was just that last couple sentences or paragraph that I was like, and I ended up giving that book 4.5 stars. I finished Salty Kisses by Judith Keim. This is the 3rd book in the Sanderling Cove Inn series. And in this series, Grandma has enlisted her 3 granddaughters, Liv, Brooke, and Charlie, to come run the inn while she goes on a trip and kind of figures out what she wants to do with the inn. And so each book we have gotten all 4 of their perspectives. Each book a cousin has found love, but it's always kind of a mystery on who's gonna find love. So I don't want to share whose love story is in the 3rd book, even though if you've read the other 2, it's pretty obvious. The love story doesn't take a ton of time in this book because Grandma comes back and we have to figure out what she's gonna do at the end and how it affects the 3 granddaughters and their loves and what the future looks like. So I thought it was a really good ending to the series. I felt like we really wrapped things up. While we still got the love story and all 4 of their perspectives, we figured out what their life's gonna look like after that. So I really enjoyed that. This was an ebook and I gave it 4 stars. I finished What Once Was Mine by Liz Braswell. This is a twisted tales where we're taking Rapunzel and twisting that the mom did not drink the sunflower at the beginning, but a moonflower, and it has different abilities than the sunflower, and some of those abilities are a little bit dark. So when Rapunzel is born, she ends up causing someone near her to pass away, and so she is given to Gothel to raise, and it will keep everyone else safe. Like the movie, Gothel feeds her lots and lots of lies and keeps her trapped in the tower and makes her do things that aren't so great. Flynn is still in the book. There is an additional character that kind of helps her through the world as she escapes the tower. Something that's very different from the other Twisted Tales is we know this is a retelling because a 16-year-old girl is in the hospital and her brother is telling her this story. So the story gets interrupted a couple times where she's like, this isn't like the real story. And he's like, I'm changing it. And so it's very clear that this is a retelling. I thought this was a really fun twist, and Tangled is definitely one of my favorite princess movies. I listened to this on audiobook and gave it 4.75 stars. Every time I start filming, things go awry. So I finished Weeklyreads by Emily Austen yesterday. It was an audiobook and it's pretty short, but it is about 2 sisters, Marguerite and Sigrid. and it's broken into 3 parts. There's a really big trigger warning on suicide because the first part of the book is Sigrid's diary entries that are suicide letters, and so you're going through her life and kind of why she wants to. And the second part of the book is Sigrid's in the hospital, and Marguerite, her sister, who we've heard about, comes and tells her truth. So we're going through some of the same events but through her eyes and kind of her explanation for them. And then the last part is back to Sigrid and her thoughts and where she ends up. This book is heartbreaking, and the narrators aren't super reliable, which makes the book really interesting as you're reading to figure out what is truth and what is not. And I feel like I could read this book again and have a totally different perspective. However, this book is not classified as a mystery. It is an adult mental health LGBTQ. I really enjoyed listening to this and ended up giving it 4.25 stars. An ebook I finished was Asking for Trouble by Tessa Bailey. This is the 4th book in the Line of Duty series. I didn't think they connected until this one, where we are following Brent and Hayden, who we met in the last book. Their best friends are now in love, and now the 2 of them have to spend time together, and they do not like each other. She is a rich princess and he's just a rough and tumble cop, and so they just don't go well together. The thin line between love and hate swings the other way. These books have been spicy romance palate cleansers, and that's exactly what this was. Once that night of passion ends, some other events take place, and they both start to get to know each other, and as romance books go, start falling for each other. And yeah, it's not a deep book, but I thought it was a really fun read. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It is the end of week 24, so let's talk about the 8 books that I am currently in the middle of. We will start with the books that have been on here the longest, and that is the gratitude journal. I did number all of the pages and found out I am 21% of the way through, so definitely behind on where I need to be if I was going to finish it by the end of the year. The second one is the Bible, and I'm doing a Bible plan. I'm about 47% of the way through there. I will have this finished by the end of the year. The third book is one I think I'm going to read after my current ebook is done. We will see, and that is Leaf of Faith by Lisa Bouchard. This is one of the 25 books I want to read in 2025, and I got to 7% at the end of May. Decided to stop reading it for another book, and I need to come back to it. So I think in week 25, you will see Leaf of Faith being read. We will see, depends on some library loans, because I had some really exciting library loans come in. But I also want to meet my June goal of finishing 3 books off the 25 books I want to read in 2025. The 4th book is When Godly People Do Ungodly Things by Beth Moore. I end up getting 28% of the way through this book. It is a longer chapter style book, which I definitely enjoy and stop and start when I need to. Last summer was really hard, and I feel like I'm in a great frame of mind to be reading this book and connecting some dots that needed to be connected. The physical book I started was Trouble with Texas Cowboys by Carolyn Brown. This is the 2nd book in the Burnt Boot Texas series. I read one of these books last year, so it is a series I want to finish, and I found out my library that's close to me has them. So I checked one out, even though I was in the middle of a couple cowboy romances. But yeah, we are 105 pages into this. While I do want to finish the series by the end of the year, I'm not going to finish the entire series by the end of June, and so this is kind of in limbo. So there are some other like June goals I'd like to get to, but I do also want to finish this. Anyways, I'm 100 pages in. The next book is an audiobook, and it's Raising Girls Who Like Themselves by Kasey Edwards. I was talking to a friend, and she has daughters, and we were just kind of talking about girls and daughters, and she said she just listened to this book and really enjoyed it. And so I started listening to it, and it's validating some things for myself, like why I think some things about myself, but also how I'm raising my daughters and what they think. There's been a few quizzes, and I've been so pleasantly surprised by the answers my daughters have given to kind of gauge where they're at on like liking themselves, we'll say, or just different categories within there. So it definitely has given me things to make sure I'm focusing on or not focusing on. Being a mom to girls, I have 2 small girls. I am 65% of the way through. I'm trying to just listen to little chunks at a time so I can really process what I'm listening to. It's not a very long book, but again, I'm just taking breaks. So the other audiobook I'm listening to is Fate Be Changed by Farrah Rochan. This is a twisted tale with Brave, where Merida is the princess. She's very upset with her mom, and in the movie she gives her mom a potion, and her mom turns into a bear, and it's them figuring out how to get her not be a bear anymore. In this book, she's mad at her mom for very similar reasons. She gets a potion, but instead of
her mom taking it, she takes it. So the potion doesn't have the same effect on her. She actually goes back in time and meets her mom and dad, and it's getting more understanding about them and their relationship and kind of where they came from, which I think is a really fun twist. I am 72% of the way through. The ebook I'm reading is Problematic Summer Romance by Hazelwood. This is the second book, Not in Love series. They're interconnected standalones, so you can read them in any order. I would definitely recommend reading Not in Love first because there is a lot of characters, and we are there celebrating Rue and Eli's wedding in this book. It is Eli's sister Maya and his best friend Connor, and we're jumped back into time 3 years and saw what kind of went on there and how they got to know each other, and then jumped forward to the wedding. They are a 15-year age gap, which I am not usually a huge fan of age gaps, so it's working to convince me, but it's definitely not there yet. I am 39% of the way through. I don't hate the age gap, I just don't know. Age gaps and me I have a hard time with. But that was my last book I'm in the middle of. I will talk to you all later and see you in my next video. Bye!